All right, so today we are diving into the world of Web3 grants. We'll be unpacking this State of Web3 Grants Report 2024. Kind of feels like, when you step into a bustling city, projects everywhere, all scrambling for funding, right?
Yeah.
And this report is our guide. It's going to help us figure out who's writing the checks and what they're looking for in the next big thing. What's really cool is this report doesn't just list out a bunch of programs. It actually takes us behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Gives us a good glimpse into the motivations, the strategies, even some of the challenges these grant makers face.
It really is insightful. It goes beyond just scratching the surface. It's not just about who's giving money to whom. It digs into the why, the how. What are their goals? What are they hoping to achieve?
Yeah, what's the method behind the madness?
Exactly. And one of the things I found really interesting is how they tackle the whole issue of measuring impact.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one, especially in the Web3 world, right? Everything is so decentralized, constantly changing. How do you even begin to measure the effectiveness of a grant in that environment?
Right. It's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
Because traditional methods, they don't always translate well to this new landscape.
Totally.
And the report really digs into that tension, that struggle to define and measure impact in a way that makes sense for Web3.
So it's we need a whole new set of tools and metrics because what we're used to just doesn't cut it.
Exactly. We need to rethink our assumptions about what success looks like and how change happens in this space.
Which is what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. We're not just talking about money here. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about funding and supporting innovation.
Absolutely. And what's really cool is that the report doesn't shy away from the messy stuff either.
Oh.
It actually covers some programs that didn't quite pan out.
Interesting.
Which I think is so valuable.
Yeah, failures can be the best teachers, as they say.
Exactly. Because it gives us a more complete picture, right? It's not just about celebrating the winners. It's about understanding what works, what doesn't work,
Yeah.
and why.
So we're not just looking at the tip of the iceberg here. We're trying to get a sense of the whole thing, the good, the bad, the challenging. Now I'm curious to hear more about these grant programs. Can you walk us through some of the key players highlighted in the report, the ones that are really making waves?
Absolutely. Let's start with a program that's been turning heads with its approach to funding.
So we're about to step into this whole landscape of Web3 grant programs. Where do we even begin?
Well, let's kick things off with the Ethereum Foundation. They've got this program, Proactive Grants, they call it. And it really turns the tables on traditional grant making.
Oh.
So instead of, just waiting around for applications to come in, they're out there actively identifying areas where the Ethereum ecosystem needs a boost. And then they seek out projects to fund.
So they're proactively scouting for talent.
Exactly. It's like they're playing matchmaker for innovation.
Yeah. I like that. So instead of waiting for someone to pitch them an idea, they're saying, here's a problem, who's up for solving it?
Exactly. And this lets them address these critical issues strategically and even, bring together potential competitors to collaborate on solutions.
That's interesting. So it's more about a collaborative approach rather than a winner-takes-all mentality.
Right. Because in a decentralized world, it makes sense to encourage that kind of cooperation. Everyone benefits in the end.
Makes sense.
Now, on the flip side, you've got the Manta Foundation. They're relatively new to the scene, and they're laser-focused on building out their own ecosystem, the Manta Network.
Okay, so they're more niche-focused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. How so?
They've earmarked a cool $10 million specifically for grants.
$10 million. That's a serious chunk of change.
Right. It shows they're serious about attracting developers and building up their network.
Yeah, that's a big vote of confidence. So they're creating a fertile ground for innovation, but within their specific ecosystem.
Exactly. Now, speaking of fostering innovation, we've got to talk about Definity Foundation.
Okay, what's their deal?
They're all about the internet-computer blockchain. And they have this incredibly diverse range of grant categories.
Like what? Give me some examples.
So whether you're a content creator, an event organizer, or a developer building dApps, Definity probably has a grant program for you.
dApps, just to clarify for our listeners, those are applications that run on decentralized networks, right?
Exactly. Like the internet computer, for example.
So instead of relying on one central server, they're powered by a whole network of computers.
Exactly. And Definity gets that. They understand that to have a thriving ecosystem, you need a diverse range of contributors.
It's like a whole ecosystem approach.
Exactly, and they've made it super easy to apply. They aim for a 2-week turnaround time.
Wow, that's fast for a grant program.
Right. They're all about speed and efficiency.
I like it. So they're removing friction, making it easier for people to get involved.
Exactly.
Now, what about this ENS public goods DAO I keep hearing about? They're doing something interesting with their funding, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're all about experimenting with different models.
Tell me more.
So unlike some of the others we've talked about, they're not just focused on their own users. They want to support projects that benefit the entire Ethereum ecosystem.
That's pretty generous.
Right. They've tried different grant sizes, different funding rounds, all in the name of finding the most effective way to support these public goods.
So they're constantly adapting and evolving their approach.
Exactly. They're not afraid to try new things.
Which makes sense in the world of Web3, right?
Absolutely.
It's all about embracing change and innovation.
Now, speaking of innovative approaches, we should definitely touch on Octant.
Octant, yeah.
Yeah.
They have that unique approach with the validator rewards, right? To be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on how that works.
Okay, so basically, in proof-of-stake blockchains like Ethereum, you have these validators. They're responsible for verifying transactions, adding them to the blockchain.
Okay, I'm following.
And as a reward for their work, they get a share of newly created tokens.
Right, the reward.
Exactly. And what Octant does is they leverage this mechanism to fund public goods.
So instead of just rewarding the validators directly, they channel some of those rewards towards projects that benefit everyone.
Precisely. It's a really clever way to create a sustainable funding stream.
I like it. So it's like a win-win. Validators get rewarded,
Yep.
and the ecosystem gets these public goods.
Exactly. And then they have this whole epoch system on top of that.
Okay, now you're getting into the weeds a bit.
Yeah.
What's an epoch in this context?
So basically, an epoch is a set period of time within Octant's system, and they use it to combine both prospective and retroactive funding.
Hold on, break that down for me. What's the difference?
So prospective funding, that's what we usually think of with grants, right?
Yeah.
Funding something because you believe it has potential.
Right, future impact.
Exactly. But with retroactive funding, they're looking back at projects that have already demonstrated impact.
So it's like recognizing past achievements.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a way to support projects that might have been overlooked initially.
Because sometimes impact takes time to become clear.
Exactly. And Octant's system recognizes that.
I like that. It's a more holistic approach. It's not just about betting on the future. It's about acknowledging the past as well.
Exactly.
It seems like the Web3 grant space is just full of these innovative approaches. It's not just about the funding itself. It's about how it's done, the philosophy behind it.
Absolutely. And it's constantly evolving.
Which is what makes it so exciting. But we haven't even touched on the tools and trends yet that are shaping how these grants are managed and evaluated.
Yeah, it's like we're seeing a whole new set of tools and practices emerge, all designed to make grant making more transparent and accountable.
Exactly. And one of the tools that caught my eye in the report is Karma, specifically their Grantee Accountability Protocol.
Karma, okay.
Yeah, they've got this cool acronym for it, GAP. And it's designed to address a really key challenge in grant making, which is, how do you make sure that grantees are actually accountable for the funds they receive?
Right, because transparency and accountability are crucial.
Absolutely, especially in a decentralized world like Web3, where trust is earned, not given.
So how does Karma GAP actually work? So basically, it provides a way for communities to track how grantees are using their funds. Like, are they hitting their milestones? Are they making progress towards their goals?
So it's like a system for monitoring and tracking progress.
Exactly. And it also allows for community feedback.
That's cool. So it's not just a one-way street.
Right. It's about creating a more participatory and transparent process.
Now, what about this HATS protocol I keep hearing about?
Oh, HATS protocol is really interesting. It's all about automating organizational processes within DAOs.
Okay, remind me what a DAO is again.
Right, so DAO, or Decentralized Autonomous Organization, it's basically a community-governed entity where decision-making power is distributed among its members.
Got it.
And HATS protocol comes in and provides all these tools for managing funds, delegating responsibilities, even voting on proposals.
So it's like bringing the principles of automation and transparency to organizational management.
Exactly. And because it's built on blockchain technology, everything is recorded and verifiable.
That's huge for building trust and accountability.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about tools, but what about broader trends?
Well, one trend that's really encouraging is the rise of grantee support.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So it's not just about giving money anymore. It's about providing guidance, mentorship, resources, really helping these grantees succeed.
So it's like a more holistic approach to grant making.
Exactly. Because funding alone isn't always enough. You need that support system, especially in a space as new and rapidly evolving as Web3.
Makes sense. But is this level of support sustainable in the long run?
That's a great question, and it's something the report touches on. It's still early days, so it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, we've talked a lot about measuring impact and how tricky it can be in the Web3 space.
Right, because traditional metrics don't always translate well.
So what's the solution?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There's no easy answer. But the report highlights the need for new and innovative approaches.
So we need to rethink how we measure success in this space.
Absolutely.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the motivations of grant makers, to the challenges of measuring impact, to the tools and trends shaping the future of Web3 funding.
It's a fascinating landscape.
It really is. So for someone who's new to all this, what's the key takeaway?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is don't be afraid to jump in. The Web3 grant space is still young. There's a lot of room for experimentation and innovation.
It's like the Wild West of funding.
In a way, yeah. But it's also incredibly exciting.
It really is. So do your research, find the grant programs that align with your values, and don't be afraid to reach out and connect.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I've learned so much.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring the world of Web3 and keep building the future.